I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
I feel like we're often, like, our house is a clown car and we're often bursting out of it with like there's like elephants and giraffes and a fire spinner and like screaming. I would not be surprised to find someone across the street like come out 5 minutes before we come out every morning with a cup of coffee just to see the hilarity that bursts forth from our front door on a regular basis.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for joining. Well, I've got to admit, I've got a little extra spring in my step today. I had the privilege this week of completely randomly meeting two different listeners of the show, and they both told me how much they really love what we're doing here. And I have to tell you, it really meant a lot to hear that. This is a labor of love, of course, so hearing that people out there are getting some value from what we're doing, it makes a big difference. So thank you, Kira, and thank you, Mary Jo. And thank you to everyone out there who listens to the show every week. Our listenership is growing, and I'm honored. Now on to the show. Today's episode is part 2 of our interview with Andy and Jennifer. If you haven't heard part 1, you should probably go back and listen to that because it will give you some more context for what we're talking about today. But to recap, in the last episode, Andy and Jen shared with us how vitally important couples therapy was in the early stages of their relationship. They also discussed the importance of talking about issues early and often, and about the simple truths that Andy sometimes needs cave time and Jennifer sometimes needs to connect, and that both of those facts are vitally important. Today, we get to hear about how adding children into the mix has really changed everything for these two. Now, it'll come as no surprise to you that parenting is hard, but these two share with us, if I may say so, rather vivid detail, just how exhausting the process really can be. The good news is, of course, that with the help of therapy and with a healthy dose of love and determination, these two have developed some really fantastic tools for parenting on empty, and we'll get to hear all about those in this episode. So with that, let's go to part 2 of the interview with Andy and Jennifer. Okay, so now it is time to get real. We talked about the halcyon days of the going through therapy and working out your issues prior to having children. And now you've got 2 kids. Sophia is, you were just telling me, 3.5, and Rowan's 2.
2. Mm-hmm.
And you're in the zombie years. What I'm curious about is, what is that actually like qualitatively? And then how do you maintain a passionate relationship in the wake of it?
It's such a big, first I'd say we need to ask us that again in 5 years, because I feel like we're definitely trying to figure this all out now, you know? I don't feel like we've figured it out, although somebody just said, you're not supposed to, maybe that's the problem. Like, you shouldn't try to figure it out. Like, you just got to go. You just got to survive and go with the flow right now. Like, don't even try to make an issue of this. But things are, things are really different now after we had the kids. And especially after having the second one, right? Because the first one, you think it's hard. And I always tell parents this, you think it's hard, and it is hard. But you actually still can carve out space for yourself and your relationship when there's 2-on-1. But once we added Rowan, who is, of course, we're thrilled having 2 kids, like no regrets there whatsoever. But it really became like zero, like what you always hear, there is 0 time for yourself and for your relationship. And I feel like Andy and we're sort of trying to figure this out, of just recognizing that we've gotten into some, like, I think I've gotten to one of my darker places.
Really?
Not in a crisis. Like, there's no crisis. It's just on a daily basis, I'm exhausted and kind of more grumpy. And I am not a grumpy person, right? Like, we were just talking about this other phase of our lives and, the kind of person I am. And now I realized Andy's we're having to get used to each other in a different way. And I would say, we went to Burning Man this year, which is amazing that we got to go without the kids and have this awesome, time to just be together and connect. And I had lots of time to actually think out there because no one's pawing at my pant leg or 24/7. And I was thinking, Andy has really had to see me and become like kind of a different side of myself come out of just not being the one who has extra resources and can be like bright and sunny and positive and chipper at all times. And all of this is simply just because I'm so fatigued.
Yeah.
It's that simple. It's just like the grind. Like I just don't have enough hours in the day to get done the work. So it's purely just too much to do in too little time and not enough energy or resources to do it all. And that's what's kind of driving this whole thing for me. There's nothing more serious going on. But just that alone is putting me into it's that fatigued place day after day after day. Your outlook, everything kind of looks a little bit dimmer. And I'm not worried about him not being attracted to me, but I'm aware that there's a certain level of adjustment that's happening on two levels. One is of myself. So I'm all of a sudden having to really be accepting of myself in this place and not be trying to constantly change it, or I should feel better, I need to be this. It's like, wait, no, actually this is we're in the trenches these first early years with two kids under 2, and it's okay to feel this way. Like the more I try to get control it or change it, that's just adding one more thing for me to do on an already too full of plate, right? So it's like, just chill out. It's fine.
Well, that's one great takeaway from it.
Just surrender to it, right? And be kind. It's okay, Jennifer. It's hard right now, right? It's like what you'd say to your toddler. It's going to be hard, and that's okay.
Yeah, don't add the voice of inner criticism to the things that are already so difficult.
Yeah.
I know the life of this new dynamic. This is like the somber Gen years, right? And it's definitely a new gen, and I was really impressed because I think we were talking about it actually leading up. It was over summer, really, leading up to Burning Man, and then in the car ride back, I think we got a lot of talking done about it. Just because, Burning Man, and just in the fact that it's a child-free vacation, is a really nice resetting point for the relationship. And we were talking about what we needed to work on and what we wanted to get out of, what we needed from each other. And I think what we do that makes it work is when one of us is in a particularly tired or dark or hopeless place, which happens when you're, on night 4 in a row of sick Rowan trading wake ups to go deal with him, the one who has more resources is able to really carry the team. And that's something that I think we do a really good job of. Because one thing we're very conscious about is it's not like we don't want to be it's not like we want to be dishonest around our kids, but we want them to always feel like they're in a safe environment. And if both of us are being grumpy, whiny little shits, that's not an environment that we want our kids to grow up in.
Right.
And so I think I've actually, we talked about this is what we talked about. Yeah. I'm actually experiencing and enjoying really the first time in our relationship where I've had to go long stints of being the positive one. And that's very new for me, because I've always had the freedom of, not that I enjoy being the moody one, but I've had the freedom of being the moody one, because she has she's always had the baseline positive demeanor, and I can always kind of orbit around that. That's how I've always seen us together. And now it's a roll.
The sun has fallen.
It's a roll. It's been a role reversal. And to your credit, it's it's so much easier. You're in such a better mood now. The summer was really rough. The summer was tough. I mean, there were some dark times there, really dark times. And I can see why it breaks people up. I really can. I mean, I can see why if someone's like, I do not have enough skin in the game, and this sucks, and I'm out of here. And that'll never.
It's a pressure cooker.
It's a pressure cooker, and that'll I think we've looked at ourselves and each other, and that's never going to happen. I mean, I'm never packing my bags and leaving, and she's never doing that either. But I can see it. I can see it in the distance as a reality for people who don't have the resources to fill in the blanks for each other and to be there to support each other, even when they themselves are feeling like total dog shit. So that's really it, you know. It's
right. You have some deeper reservoir that
you're like, oh man,
somehow...
I right. There's literally been mornings when I wake up and I'm like, oh God, this sucks so much. I can't believe I have to get up right now. And then I turn over to Jen and I'm like, whoa, she's in a way worse mood than I am. I better find some resources here. And you know, I've dug deep to places I didn't know I had. And there's a bit of pride where I'm like, okay, I'm the captain today. I'm the family captain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna go in. It's gonna be fun for the kids. We're gonna have a good morning. I'm gonna start them off on the right foot. And it's also just better for us. I mean, who needs to be in a household that's just full of negativity and it can happen a lot.
Have you ever dug deep and found that there was just no more?
Oh man.
What's that
it's
like?
A very
Can you
horrible
talk about
place. I'll tell you what's funny about that place is it would seem like that place would be like, oh, I really want to find more stuff. I can't find any more resources. It's actually not like that at all. This is what it feels like. I have no more resources and I don't fucking care. You can all go to hell. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here.
That's the place that you can imagine
but
could lead to.
What's good is when you go there, and
only
Andy
takes
has gone there a few times, but he usually, it's so bad, he'll actually like verbalize it.
I'll be like, I am not a useful human being or contributor to this family today.
Right. But it's like, you know, it's so bad. Like you have to out yourself because it's like you're dealing with it, you know.
Have you ever
like
gotten...
You're dealing with a bomb. Like, and it's just, but that's the thing about you that I so love is that you, rather than really just throw the bomb, you're like, I've got the bomb. Like, you have enough wherewithal still to just sort of articulate it in a way that makes it so that we're like, oh, okay, you know, protocol bomb.
Right.
Like, everyone, you know,
oh, and
I'm like, take a walk.
Yeah, and
and
she immediately puts the turbochargers on herself. And
what if both? I mean, have you ever both reached it at the same time?
There've been I feel like rare snippets, like if we're just trying to get out of the house in the morning or something, and it's kind of bad. But it's
and what that looks like is like it's so benign. Like when both of us are in the red, we call it, we're in the red. You know, I'm in the red. I'm in, you know, and we're like, oh, the worst scenario is when we're both in the red. Like that is when. But when it gets bad, it's like we might kind of nip at each other as we're leaving the house. But it's really not that bad. But that's so out of character for us that we know, like, I don't even ever nip at you, right, about some dumb thing. Like, you know, well, I didn't, you know, did you get the shoes? Of course I got the shoes. Like, do you think I
think I'm an idiot?
Idiot? And I'm like, I didn't mean you know, that kind of a thing, which probably, you know, couples kind of, that's how they communicate on a regular basis.
Yeah. And
like
if also if you're not
so
careful,
abnormal.
you know, I mean, the internal dialogue is an interesting thing in a relationship also, because you can have a perfectly civil conversation, but have one little sarcastic ending to the dialogue, walk away, and each of you is having a conversation in your mind with the other where you're like, I can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
And it turns this big fight in your head, which doesn't even happen in person. And then you come back together, and it's hard to get out of that state of mind.
Because then you're reacting to as if that was the reality of what happened, right? And then you're already in that place.
Yeah. And so do you find that, I'm imagining in Code Red that could happen.
No, It can, but I give us credit for recognizing that early, because in Jen's little joke there, she was like, well, you know, where are Sophia's shoes? Well, I have the shoes. Well, why? What do you think, I'm an idiot or something? We've done everything up to, well, I have the damn shoes, you know. But then we immediately recognize it. I think we have a lot of I think we're really, really good at picking up on the signals to the point. Where if I snap at her like that, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I generally come back fairly quickly, and I'm like, I was feeling totally reactive right then. I'm sorry that wasn't about you. I apologize.
Right.
And
or sometimes it is about me. Sometimes it's because, you know, whatever. I didn't
But I think
trust you, or I didn't, I was being too controlling about something or whatever, right? But yeah, you're so quick to own the reaction, even if it was about a valid thing, and then we can just sort of move on to what the real issue was, right?
But if you're both in a red zone and it is about a valid thing, do you table it?
sometimes tabling has to happen. Yeah. Sometimes it's literally just get the. Like we talk a lot about getting out of the door in the morning. This is like a major.
Yeah.
By the time we get to work, there's
You're
been a lot of trauma.
You know what it takes.
Yeah. This is. I feel like we're often like our house is a clown car and we're often bursting out of it with like there's like elephants and giraffes and a fire spinner and like screaming like it. I would not be surprised to find someone across the street like come out 5 minutes before we come out every morning with a cup of coffee just to see the hilarity that bursts forth from our front door on a regular basis.
Yeah, a retired parent.
Somebody is usually screaming.
Someone's usually screaming.
Somebody
and,
under
and,
five
and there are,
usually screaming.
how many times do we, follow up later in the morning with text messages, just like, hey, want to acknowledge that this happened, way to get out of the house on time. Sorry about this. And it was funny when I hear us talking about this, and I think about like someone hearing this, it sounds like it might be exhausting, but it's so much less work to nip things in the bud and be hyper aware of when they're happening.
For sure.
And I think a lot of, for me, what all the therapy did for me throughout my life was to give, it doesn't cure me of the ability, like I still get triggered, but I recognize in the moment when it's happening or when the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm like, I know that this is a triggered moment.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bookmark this and come back to it.
I really want to know what your insight is that allows you to let go of the anger feeling or the frustrated feeling so that you can send that text message.
I certainly do feel a lot of anger and frustration in this life. I mean, I'm definitely the angry, frustrated one in the family. And, a lot of it for me is like, I've always been a punctual person, and basically these three people are completely screwing up my ability to be punctual, which is like something I have to work constantly to let go. But sometimes I have to be to a meeting, and now I'm already formulating the discussion with my boss about why I'm late. And, it's just things like that. I mean, it's so unimportant, but those are the things that can really get to me. And so, I think it all, this sounds so sappy, but I always come back to the fact that like I did ask her to marry me. I did make those vows, and part of that was that I'm always going to come back to a place where we can find safety and security in one another as fast as possible. So as soon as I'm capable of it, and it might be a few hours, it might be a day, I'm going to come back and acknowledge it and bring it up. And so those are my versions of being like, okay, I'm bringing this to the table. Let's discuss it. But it's it's usually in like some form of revalidation and positivity.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the reasons why we can easily bring it to each other is because we don't get defensive, or we don't attack the other person when they, like if one of us apologizes for where, that I was not, I didn't handle that as well as I would like. You get total grace from the other person every time, and so it's not scary to bring it up. It's not like you don't feel like you're making yourself so vulnerable because you know that we've proven to each other that we have each other's backs in that moment, and we're gonna provide that. Like I always, like one of my biggest goals is that you have to make a safe space when someone's being vulnerable, and you really, and that all that is just getting out of yourself. That's just getting out of yourself, right?
That is so huge.
Huge. It's everything. I mean, I think that's it. It's not that easy to do, but I think it's that simple.
So,
and I think we do that really well for each other. So it's not scary to cop up because,
you just tossed this phrase out. I create safety and security for her. We create safety and security for one another. Like it's so easy. And that strikes me as so fundamentally critical to the health of a relationship. And you could almost say that everything you do is about that. You're so conscious of that. Did that also come out of therapy?
I think it predated therapy. I think it really was.
You mean our couples therapy, or like even individual therapy?
How did you two get to the point where it's obvious? Oh, I got to create safety and security for it. Some people get that instinctively. You guys say it out loud.
I would say that just what I've learned through the relationships I've been in, and again, not any long-term relationships longer than a year, 14 months, but dating a number of people, I still got a sense of what I wanted and what I didn't want. And the big thing for me was to find someone that I felt like we always had each other's back, and we're always trying to make the other person feel good about themselves and safe and secure and happy. And it doesn't mean that I feel like I'm responsible for Jen's happiness. It means that I'm responsible for maintaining an arena in which she can experience happiness of her own accord. And that to me, that might be the whole thing right there.
Really.
Yeah.
You're only going to be happy, and the relationship's only going to thrive if she has the space to stretch and grow in the way that she needs to, and to be happy in the way that she needs to be.
Right. I don't think we have any confines on each other, really. And again, back to the boats drifting along together analogy. I think the stability comes, when they are tied off one another, but they're not necessarily
the same boat.
They're not controlling each other, but it's still something that they work together constantly without putting too much space in between them.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to The Together Show, the podcast about what's really going on in relationships. And I'm your host, Eric Newton. With me today in the studio are Jennifer Tuvison and Andy McElroy. And we're talking about what it takes to make the relationship work after kids. I've got so many questions about this for you two, because you seem to have figured out so many of the fundamental pieces. And something I want to turn to, which is how do you... So you really gave up one lifestyle to have kids, and now you're in another lifestyle necessarily.
To put it mildly.
Yeah. Most couples go through what you're going through now. Everybody who's a parent goes through what you're going through now to some degree, but for you guys, it's almost amplified because of the dramaticness of the shift in some ways. I might be making that up, but do you regret the loss of that lifestyle, other than just that it's hard now? Do you think you'll get it back?
Like, where is this all going, or how do we put it all together? We what's funny, because I was thinking that we went to Burning Man, and we show up for these dance events or things very infrequently compared to times past. But I laugh because we get this feedback of, we want to, you guys are role models as parents because you still know how to have fun and you still do these things. And we're like, are you kidding? This is like once every six months. But if that looks like a lot to you, I don't know who the other parents are that are out there. But if that's frequent, then, we're not as worse off. But I think...
Yeah, this is like a big deal date night for us, by the way, just being here at the studio.
Gosh.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming to your date night to sit in a radio studio.
Why do you think we answered yes so enthusiastically? Well, of course. Take us for hours. No. But we, I just want to... It's sort of tied to it, but I feel like we weren't even talking about being parents or the kids for those last few minutes. We're talking about being in the red and how we communicate, and yet that is so specifically to where we are because of just the needs of children, right? And you just don't. You're just so you have to expend so much on a daily basis, right? And that's kind of like the part about having kids. But we don't regret it, but we've reached that, or in the last 6 months, I finally got to the place of, okay, I now need to take something back for myself. I now need to start, doing an exercise class a week, or I need to have more date nights with you, babe, because I don't want our relationship to go unattended for longer than this period. I think we sort of needed to give it all to the kids, and we both believe in that. But now I'm like, I think they're starting to get old enough. I mean, at 2 and 3.5, which isn't really old, but old enough that we can start claiming a little bit more time for ourselves and to do more social things, and so we've really I feel like I've turned a corner and now see like light at the end of the tunnel, like, oh, we're starting to have people over for dinner like once a week, and my little extroverted self, there's like a little sprinkling of water now happening where like there's a sprout here and a sprout there, like, wow, we can get back into the into some socializing, and so I feel now I can. Like, had you asked me a year ago, I think I would have been like, I don't know, Eric. I don't know how the hell we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, like we've made it through that, and that was kind of tough, and it was hard for me, and but now, like, we're finding ways to get those little non-parent related, joys and fun times and experiences back into our lives, and it's like Burning Man was like the biggest hit. It was like
that's a great example.
It was like a IV direct line of recharge that
right.
felt so good. It was almost scary how good it felt
That's
just
what
to be
Burning
out
Man
there,
is for.
right? I mean,
oh yes,
having kids now, that just was so
Amplified.
therapeutic. Yeah, so I feel like we're starting to. It'll never be like it was, but every parent who's been ahead of us says, trust us, it'll get better. Like, you'll be able to read a novel again, right? So I feel like we're gonna get, we've got pretty good game. We'll get it. We're on the path.
You'll get it
we're
back.
On the path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just not quite the same.
Well, Andy, you're smiling
I know,
knowingly. So is
working.
that your same perspective?
Yeah, I would say I agree with 100% of that. I would definitely just add that as her little sprouts come out, as her extroverted self gets a little bit of water and nourishment, I can see that, and it's really nice. But I also learned to love and appreciate the other Jen and my role in that in that part of the relationship too. But yeah.
Like, we'll probably start having sex again, in the next year.
Did it really come to a complete
I mean,
halt?
no, not a complete halt, but
I think we're lucky if it's like once a month average, probably.
Wow.
I know. It's like that's the desert.
Yeah.
Just this week, it was like, what is it, yesterday morning or something, I think. And we were joking around, as we always, I don't know. At least we can still joke about it a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
Like at the most inopportune times, like the kids are screaming and like, Sophia's like, I wet my bed and it's time to wake up in the morning and all hell's breaking loose. And, we'll be in the bathroom and be like, quick, hun, pull your pants down.
Yeah.
Right.
As if that's
even
it's not
remotely possible. And the last time we did have sex, we finally found the time and the energy, and it was great. And then Sophia woke up and came out and interrupted us. We're like, are you kidding me? Like,
inevitable.
We finally found the moment, and the kid still interferes with the moment, bless their heart. So
we had a couple in just recently who was talking, they were talking about the zombie years and the tough times and how sex had pretty much completely halted. And it got to a point with the kids where the rounding of the corner for them was when they realized that the kids could actually do most of breakfast kind of on their own. And so they would sneak 20 minutes during breakfast, and that's when they do it.
Are their kids like 10? That's like decades away from us.
No. I think their kids are like 5 and 7.
We'll just put the stuff out on the counter and just say, go. Eat as much as you can in 20 minutes.
Throw bread in the room, quick, shut the doors, be like, don't kill each other.
Yeah. Yeah, but eking out those moments sounds like it's vital.
It's fine.
Which
and you hear that, and I was like, oh, we're not going to be that couple who like doesn't have sex anymore, and da da da. And because I felt like we had such a good baseline going, and then I was like, damn it, it happened to us too, And I'm very, I'm so. I truly believe like you have to work on your sex life as years of the relationship go on.
Right.
Like you can't just pretend like it's the way it was in the first couple of years. And I'm totally fine with that. It gets a little practical, but I'm like, yeah, let's like, And so I think, it's the same thing with having kids. It's just another moment where we're like, we actually better like schedule this or do these things that seem unsexy, but to make it happen. We've had some date nights, like had a hotel night, here or there, and we can have sex on those nights.
So I'm curious. So this makes me all want to turn to the question of what are some of the techniques to stay sane during this period that you employ. Now, I mean, part of what you've said, frankly, is there are no techniques. You just get through it, and you let it be hard, and you don't beat yourself up for the fact that it's hard.
Exactly.
And you just roll with it because it is hard. And you two are pretty proactive. So I'm guessing you probably have built some tools that make a big difference and parents should be aware of.
I think one of the things that Jen's done a great job of and helped instruct me along the way is letting go in certain moments.
I think us being able to hand the baton over.
Oh yes,
there's a lot of tag teaming.
Like just or like I'm not in a good place. Like I'm not going to deal with her tantrum very artfully right now. Like, can you go take it?
Yeah.
So being able to recognize that moment and not pushing yourself beyond and like you said, you might have 10 seconds before that been like, I can't deal with this. But if I go to you and say, I can't deal with this, your rescuer self will pop up and be like, okay, now I have a purpose. Men like to have like a purpose and like missions.
Totally do.
I'm always a sucker for that.
Yeah, and same thing. Like I can be dragging, and if Andy's really having a hard time and comes out and says, I need you to go in there, it'll kind of give me a new burst of energy.
Right.
So it's great that we take advantage of that because I think it helps, kind of prop each other up in those moments. And frankly, like Andy doesn't do this as much, but I do read blogs and things and just seeing 500 posts that describe my morning. I'm like, oh,
right.
Okay. I feel instantly better. Like this is normal. This isn't like us doing a terrible job. Although half the time we're like, do we just suck at this? Because like, this is so hard. No one told us how hard it was.
We're terrible at it.
We're terrible. And then you read and you're like, oh, everyone else thinks that too. So it must be all normal. Okay. Like back into the ring, So that's something that, that's also so cliche, but it really does help me to, commiserate and see that experience is not uncommon.
Right. This is parenting.
Yeah.
And we are humans.
Yeah.
And it's normal.
Yeah. And picture of other people's houses with just
chaos
crap everywhere and like 3, things spilled all over the floor and it's just like a bomb went off in the house. And I see that. I'm like, oh, that's not just us either. Okay. So that helps. That makes me feel better.
It also sounds like you guys have code words for different places where the needle might be on the meter. So, because you say, hey, I'm in the red zone, and then that's when the baton gets passed.
I'm in the red is the self-declaration. The safe word for Jen to call me out if I'm really, really in a bad place is are you gone? Are you totally gone right now? And then I can just be like, okay, yep, I'm useless. Then that means I'm actually engaged at a time I shouldn't be.
Right.
And I'm not being a good parent to my kids.
Right.
And then it's time for me to instantly recognize that and back off, and she takes over.
Did that come out of therapy, realizing that?
No, we've just came up with that fairly recently. Because
Yeah.
I was just having really hard times with Sophia, and she was just begging for more and more discipline, but it became a horrible cycle.
Right.
And I was just pissing me off to the point where I could tell I was not parenting from a calm place of leadership.
Oh, that's an interesting distinction. Talk about that.
called a parent tantrum.
Oh, totally. Oh my gosh. Well, basically, when I'm so in the red, I hit the place where I'm just like, I do care about this moment. I'm so pissed off, and I feel like I need to be in control. And this little being is out of control, and it just keeps getting worse. And I am not.
And you get a little out of control.
And I get out of control, and I'm like, I'm not gonna lose this power struggle, which of course is a losing.
Right.
Already I've lost.
Right? Does it matter with a kid if you give up the power? I mean, because I guess your fear is, well, if I lose the power struggle, then I'm spoiling the kid. Well, that's
basically if anyone who's listening has seen Inside Out, that's basically how the dad handles it. He gets afraid and angry at the same time, insists on winning a power struggle, and in his mind he's like, took care of that, avoided disaster, and the wife is like, well, that was a disaster. Because that's what happens, right? And that's what goes on in my head. I'm like, I'm afraid that I'm going to not be in control, but then I'm not in a calm place that should be in control. I'm in an angry place.
Right.
And so Jen will take over for that and give me the space, and I'll go have my daddy tantrum, which is pretty much just me being alone and quiet for a little bit. I'm not actually doing a Sophia tantrum with the
banging your head on the wall.
Yeah, there's none of that going on.
He's not throwing things.
Not that you know of, but I do want to design a house. I am going to design our next house that has a freak out room, padded soundproof walls.
You just go in and shut the door.
You can just be as loud and crazy as you want in there, and no one knows.
That's a genius idea.
It's going to be great.
It's the ultimate parent solution right there.
Yeah, anyone can go in. I mean, it's for parents and kids alike.
As a non-parent, I have actually often thought about that power dynamic issue.
You know, it's an art. It's a very nuanced process that I feel like changes with where you are, where your kid is in that day or that moment. Like it's like the same thing doesn't necessarily work the next, one thing that worked before might not work the next day. And I think that's one of the trickiest things about being a parent is just being so limber and being not completely unnerved by the fact that you often don't know what is the best thing in the moment, and you just are trying to do your best to navigate it, in the most delicate way possible. But it's in the moment that you're learning. Like, you're trying to take your kids' clues and be like, that's not working. Can I redirect what I'm doing? And we're still learning. There's a stack of child development books that I have want to read and be like, how do you deal with this issue? Like, we don't know. But what I do know is when I stay calm, the kids either stay calmer than they were, or they can get to a calm place more quickly.
Right. Yep.
And so it's about, our goal is always trying to stay as calm as possible. And if we recognize that the other person's getting, charged, just to bring awareness to their parent, like, you're starting to get a little amped.
Right.
You're getting a little too amped, right?
Yep.
And to not make each other, like, that moment that you get triggered when your partner calls you on that, how do you do that in a way that doesn't make them feel even worse about themselves in that moment, which can make you not a good parent in that moment either.
Yeah.
So, and surrender is like our new mantra, is like,
oh yes,
like, okay, so maybe they're both tantruming. What if you just sort of sit there and just look at them? Like, don't say anything, be there, but like, don't do anything. Like, how can you do as little almost as possible, unless they're like going to hurt themselves or each other or you? And this I think the biggest thing that we're learning is recognize this innate sense to control things. You didn't realize how much of a control freak you are until you have kids.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we're so chill. And like, actually you feel all these things like, oh, she shouldn't be pushing Rowan over, or they can't be like marking up the bench, or they're not putting their jammies on. And then you're like, realize, well, they can just sleep in what they went to school in. Like, who really cares, right? Do you have to, at some point in their life, like, we don't all sleep in our jeans and sweatshirts,
right?
Usually, right? So at some point they're going to not do that. So do you really need to focus all your effort on teaching them there that night? Like,
right.
No, right? And so as soon as you realize how much you can let go of, the whole thing becomes a lot easier, and you're like, oh, like, do less almost, Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to do less because you feel like you're supposed to like teach them in every moment
You know what that's
the
really
right thing is.
pointing to for me when I think about the charge that happens in any context for us when we get angry or upset about something. I think I might be reductionistic about this, but I think that you can almost always trace it down to a fear of some kind. There's some, at its core, critical fear that if you don't do something else or fix the thing or be treated in the right way or speak in the proper tone, something really, really bad is going to happen. And so one of the antidotes to charge is to dig down into what is the fear. Because when you bring the fear to light, you usually realize it's not that big of a deal. Actually,
Right.
it's probably not that big of a deal. And so what you're doing, one way I see what you're doing is you're letting go of the fears. You're letting go of your attachment to resolving the fears. It's almost as if you're acknowledging that, sure, there are fears and there is some kind of imperfect resolution. But on the other hand, ultimately, it's all going to be just fine. And as long as the kids aren't drowning in the pool or drinking acid, they're going to be fine. And so are we, because we've committed to each other in the way that you two so clearly and beautifully and deeply have. So I'm just in awe of the two of you. Well, I know it's on the ground as a reality, and it's a lot harder. But
that's what we're, that's why I say, like, we haven't nailed it, but we are now, this is what we're talking about, is how to put that into practice. And we're not putting into practice on a consistent basis.
Work in progress.
What a lovely phase you're in.
Learning new stuff every day, for sure.
Wow. So I know that you've got to get home to those kids, and we're running out of time. So we should probably bring the show to a close. First, thanks both for being here. But second, I like to close shows with a rousing game of this or that. You guys know how to play this or that?
No.
It's pretty simple. Anybody can get this.
Okay.
I'm going to say a this or that, and I'm going to point to one of you, and you're going to answer which one you prefer. And then the other one will get to answer too. And maybe we'll learn something about you.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start really easy. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
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 Coffee for both of you. It's not too jittery?
I couldn't parent without coffee.
No, I can't. I can't be overcaffeinated these days.
Yeah.
It's impossible to
Sorry.
overcaffeinate.
That's our drug of choice as of late. So, okay, next.
Save or spend?
Spend.
Save.
I love it when it's two opposite answers.
Damn it.
We know this.
Is that a fundamental thing for the two of you?
I thought she was changing.
It's not really
You
a big
thought
thing.
she was dead. Nobody ever
thought I could change
changes,
that. No.
especially around money.
Well, maybe I
Fine.
can
That's
change
why we
her.
balance each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next.
Surrender or suffer?
Surrender.
That was obvious.
Yeah.
You guys gave that one away earlier, but I'd written it down in advance, so I was.
You're choosing.
Money or time?
Time.
Time.
Yeah, that's an obvious one too. Okay. Here's a random one I thought of before you guys came in. Peg leg pirate or neon ninja?
Neon Ninja. That's so obvious.
I'm going to go Neon Ninja on this one as well.
Please, can't have burners. Anything with like a neon in it. I'm like, I don't even care what the next word is.
Okay, and last one. Would you rather, if you had to, either live forever, ever, or die in the next 5 minutes? Which would it be?
Forever, ever.
Oh God, that's so horrible. My first inclination is forever, not because I really want to live forever, but I certainly want my kids to have a mother for longer than what they just had.
I'll take.
So I have to go forever because the kids forever.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll take the
that would be
infinite
suffering
years
at
of
some
suffering
point.
to see the next 80 years, 100 years of my kids' lives.
Yes, there we go. True. That's it.
You guys are amazing. I love you both so much.
We love you too. Thank
We
you
love
for
you
this
too.
opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for
I
coming
love
in.
Andy even more after this interview.
That's the perfect outcome. That really is the ultimate outcome.
So great.
Well, that's it for the Andy and Jennifer interview, folks. Thanks for listening. Now, I neglected to mention this in the last episode, but Andy is in the solar business. So if you're thinking about getting into solar, why not reach out to Andy to learn all about it? Now, you can find his phone number in the show notes, and he's at Sungevity, and you can check out Sungevity at www.sungevity.com. That's Sungevity. And once again, his phone number will be in the show notes, so if you'd like to contact him directly, you can do that. If you liked what you heard on our show, please consider subscribing to us on iTunes or donating to our crowdfunding campaign at patreon.com/together. Anything you can donate makes a huge difference to us, so thanks a lot for doing so. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide, where we also have an online magazine. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. And I would love to hear from you, so please don't be shy about reaching out. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director, and my one and only, is Aubrey Pick. I can't wait to go give her a big squeeze. Thanks once again to my guests, Andy and Jen. I love you guys. I owe you both dinner, so come on over. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.